Hey everybody, it's Kat, and I want to welcome you to this episode of Backstory Sessions. I'm joined today by my co-host Willie. Hey Willie.
Hey, Kat.
Wow, I am so excited for this episode. You know how I love these February love stories.
Yes,
Well,
we both do.
yes, and this is just going to be a very unique one. I don't know this story completely, but the things I know of it like have me very intrigued.
Oh, yeah.
Curiosity, you know what that does to the cat.
Well, we won't go there.
We won't go there. 'Cause we want to keep me around a little longer. All
Yes,
right.
as long as we can.
Well, today we have Camille James Harmon is going to be our guest, and um, this love story is very unique. It starts at a gas station, of all places. I wonder how many love stories start there.
Uh, I would say not too many.
I mean, how,
Usually it's at the grocery store.
or the laundromat, like Dolly Parton. You know,
Yeah.
you never know. But anyways, I mean, somehow this moment was life changing and it turned into marriage and curiosity and adventure. And Camille is with us to share all of that. So, Camille James Harmon, I want to welcome you, and I can't wait to hear your backstory.
Thank you, Kat and Willie. I'm excited to tell my story because I love telling this story. I think it's the weirdest story I've ever heard about people meeting, and I'm just very happy to tell it. So
Well,
I was,
yeah,
I,
take us back to,
okay.
when was this? Like, let's start there.
All right. It all happened on August 22nd, 1998. And I was leaving a very interesting place and I had to get gas along the way. So I had been at the beach in Malibu. Well, it really wasn't the beach, it was a bluff. It was a park overlooking the ocean. And I was part of a group called MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, and we were doing a field investigator training class. So it's a UFO group and they train people to be investigators so that when people make reports, they have someone to explain what they saw. And I was training to do that, but I never finished the training anyway. I hate math and I was scared of the math, but whatever. I was doing the training and we were looking at the sky to understand what we were seeing that was not a UFO, like satellites and airplanes and other things that you might see in the sky. So we just had the meeting. There were other meetings inside, but this one was out in the sky looking at the sky. But I had to leave early because I had to go to a rehearsal for a play. I'm an actress, so I had a play in Hollywood, which is really far away, and I had to leave and get to that. So I had to stop and get gas though. And I had this red convertible LeBaron, a Chrysler LeBaron back then. And I had this bumper sticker on my car that said "I heart England." Remember those bumper stickers? Everybody had "I heart this" and "I heart that."
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, I pulled over at this gas station because I had this huge crush on the rock star Sting from the Police,
Yes,
and he,
absolutely.
yeah, and he lived in this house right next to this gas station. There's like a private entrance with a little gate and the whole security thing, and it's called the Malibu Colony. And so I just pulled over into that gas station, and I was pumping my gas and thinking Sting lives over there, but he has like 8 houses, so he probably wasn't actually there. But anyway, he has one house there. So I'm getting gas, and this sticker was on my car, and this other guy was getting gas on his motorcycle next to me. And he looked at my bumper sticker and he just felt like asking me, "What part of England do you love?" And I thought, well, I was in Wiltshire looking at crop circles. And I thought, he's not going to know what I'm talking about because very few people know what crop circles are. But I had just returned from England and I walked in the crop circles that people, think are being made by UFOs. And it was an amazing trip. And it's also right where Sting has another house out in the country called Lake House. And it's like a 400-year-old home on 100 acres. And I went there too, and I saw that house. So it was a wonderful trip. And I had that sticker on my car for that reason. So, so all I said to him was, I was just in Wiltshire looking at crop circles. And he said, oh, my friend Jim Delatoso showed me a video of UFOs making crop circles. And I said, you know Jim Delatoso? Who's that guy is like a famous video analyst for UFO footage. And he was involved in the Phoenix Lights in 1997, the year before, when all these people videoed this giant UFO going over Phoenix, Arizona. And so I was kind of impressed. It was like name dropping. And he said, yeah, he said, what got you into UFOs? And I said, well, they got into me. He said he didn't miss a beat. He said, oh, I had trouble with them growing up in Wisconsin. And I thought, oh my gosh, this conversation is getting very interesting. And so we proceeded to share stories about our different UFO encounters and in my case, alien encounters. And it was
Um,
very interesting. That's how it started.
so is this still at the gas station? You're
Yeah.
standing and sharing these
Yeah.
UFO stories.
Swapping
Um,
stories over the pint.
okay, so I mean, did you find him attractive, or did you notice anything else about him?
I
Other,
did. I
okay.
found him very attractive, and he was very tall. I had dated tall guys before, but he was dark haired, and he looked very manly. And I tended to date men that were not as manly, like hairy and kind of like big. And I don't know, he wasn't exactly my physical type that night, but he was handsome. And we swapped business cards, and so we went our separate ways. And then I had had a fling with a guy over in England, so I was still thinking about that guy. But eventually, I thought, um, I'm going to call him. I'm going to call him. And it was a month before I called him. He didn't call me. I called him. so, so finally, I called him, and he remembered me, and he said, "Let's meet at my favorite cafe. It's called the Earth Cafe on Melrose, and I'll meet you there." And he lived in Beverly Hills, and I lived out near Silver Lake. It was kind of far. So I drove, and he rode his motorcycle, and we met at the cafe. And he brought his laptop to the cafe. And when we sat down with our food, he opened up the laptop, and he told me he was an astrologer. And he said, do you know your birth data? Do you know when you were born, like the time of day and the whole thing? And I said, yeah, because I was into that. And he typed me in. And I had had a long-term relationship right before I met Jeff. And he said, do you know your ex-boyfriend's data? And I said, yeah. And so he typed him in, and he goes, oh, I bet he was like this, and this, and you broke up because of this, and this. And I was like, oh my goodness, you're really good. Wow. And then he gave me a mini reading too. And it was very interesting. And what he was doing, he was checking me out astrologically, because he was thinking, why should I bother for a second date if, we're not compatible and she's a crazy person or whatever. So I thought that was very funny that he checked me out that way on our first date. But I passed the test, and he said, why don't you leave your car here and we'll go take a ride on my motorcycle? I brought another helmet. So we went out to the beach, and we walked on the beach, and we listened to Sting. He had headphones, and we listened to Sting on the stereo on the motorcycle. It was really cool.
So, what would have been a deal breaker as far as sign or, um, you know,
Yeah. Well, it's more complicated. A lot of people think of that sun sign compatibility, but the type of stuff he does is super advanced. So he goes by the actual chart comparison. And there are a lot of other things you look at. So one of the things he found in our charts that were good is um, we both have Mercury in Libra. So you don't just look at where your sun is, you look at all these other things. And Mercury in Libra is funny because it means that you're very open-minded and you see both sides of things. However, it can make it hard for you to make up your mind. So you can be very broad-minded and see all sides, and and look at lots of different perspectives. But then when you go to a restaurant and you're trying to order, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I want. I want this or this. I can't decide. And so we both do that. It's funny. But there were other things too in the chart that were compatible. So here we are. So anyway, what happened next is after our first date, um, we dated for 3 years, and then we got married. And when we wanted to get married, um, we got married on August 22nd, 2001. And it was 3 years to the day from when we met, but we didn't realize that at the time because I knew we met in August, but I couldn't remember which day. And I finally went back to one of my old day runner things, with the calendar where I wrote all my stuff in. And I saw, when was that UFO meeting? I bet I can figure it out by looking in my appointment book. And there it was. So then I realized, oh my goodness, we actually got married exactly 3 years to the day later. And he picked it astrologically. And we got married on a Wednesday morning at 10:35. He does that for people. He selects wedding dates and times. And so we had to say our vows at 10:35, and we had to reverse engineer the rest of the ceremony so that it ended up us saying our vows at 10:35. All of our guests put up with it. It was funny.
Interesting. Well, at what point did you realize that, this isn't a random person? Like, was there a moment that you knew this was gonna be your person?
Yes, because I felt very safe with him. He's very intuitive, and he's very much about understanding the good and the bad with paranormal experiences. Like, we are not naive people, we don't go looking for trouble. And he's like, you can't just play around with stuff and think whatever weird paranormal thing happens, it's a good thing. So he was all about like protection and, spiritual protection and things. And so was I. So, because I had had some bad experiences and I didn't want to have those anymore. So, but that was appealing to me. And he had a lot of other knowledge. He used to own a recording studio, so he had a lot of knowledge of technology and running a business. He recorded Mother Teresa once, and he recorded George Carlin. He had a very interesting career besides being an astrologer. But I don't know. He just seemed to be a grown up, if that makes sense. And a lot of my boyfriends before were actors and artists, and they were great. But I don't know. He just seemed, when he was older than me too. He was 7 years older than me, and that was attractive to me. And he looked like Robert Mitchum a little bit.
So, how was the proposal? Like,
Well, the same beach that we went to on our first date, that became our beach we would go to. And so he proposed to me on my birthday, um, before we got married. And he gave me a beautiful, no, he didn't give me a ring. I know what he did. He proposed to me at the beach. He got down on a knee and everything, but he didn't give me a ring. He said, I want you to design the ring that you want. I said, okay, fine, whatever. But I was happy about that because I'm kind of a control freak about things like that. So we had a friend that was a jeweler, and I picked out a ring, and she had the ring made. And then I had to wait a little while for it, but that's okay. So that was all good. And then, so it worked out. He knew how I am about jewelry.
so, Willie, this is obviously, a unique beginning. Do you have any questions?
Um, what did you think though when you first met him? What was your first impression before you all started talking and swapping stories? What did you think of him at first sight?
I thought he was handsome. I thought he was successful looking. Um, he had a beautiful voice. He still has a beautiful voice.
Does he
he,
sing?
he can sing. Yes, he does sing, and he plays instruments. He plays guitar and piano, and he played drums. So he owned a recording studio at one time. So he had a musical upbringing. His mother taught him astrology, and I thought that was interesting. And he grew up in Wisconsin, which is very different from my upbringing. I grew up in Louisiana. And when we got married, my family said, "You married a Yankee." And I was like, "Oh, for goodness sake." um, but he's very tall. And I also joked with my family when we got married. I said, I bred some height back into the family because I'm 5'1" and he's 6'3". And we had a son who's now 6'3". So that was funny. There were just so many good synchronicities in our lives too. And he loved Sting. So he didn't care that I had a crush on Sting. And we went to many Sting concerts. He even took me to see Sting in Paris for my birthday one year when Sting was in an opera that was written for him. And I met Sting several times over the years, and he was really nice. And I met him there in Paris. So we've just had fun together. We like the same things pretty much, and we have separate skills. So he's really good at technology and fixing things. Like he can fix anything. He can fix the car, he can fix computers, he can fix the house. And I can't do that. And but I'm good at things like proofreading his work and correcting grammar and stuff like that. So,
Okay.
it works out.
So, what differences do you have that you thought maybe would create a conflict? I know it looked like you aligned in a lot of ways, but were there some concerns?
Well, one of the things that he told me, because when he did our marriage chart, he said, I'm working with some difficult things. You can never get a perfect chart. So he said, one of the things that will be difficult for us in our marriage is travel. And I was like, oh, bummer, man. That's not good. And he's like, well, we got everything else good. So it's funny because we very often travel separately from each other. I travel a lot more than he does. He's kind of a homebody, to be honest. But so I'm very happy to travel alone. I just got back from this trip to Louisiana to see family, and before that, I was in Virginia seeing some other family. And I went to Ireland this summer with a friend of mine, and that was a big trip. And my 70-year-old friend really wanted to go, and she wanted me to go with her. And I thought, well, that's something I should do with my family. It's kind of expensive. And she said, but you'll have more fun with me. And I was like, oh, that's sweet. And it was kind
Huh.
of true because you know how it is when you're trying to wrangle your whole family. Anyway, so he's very good at letting me run around the world, and he comes with me to things sometimes, but he's very high maintenance as a traveler. Like he has to bring so much stuff. That's why he doesn't like to fly, because when he drives, he can bring all his stuff. That's funny. Anyway, it worked out.
So he knew travel would be a problem, like in the amount of travel, or like what did the chart show that indicated a
It,
problem
it
there?
was in our wedding chart. It wasn't in our regular compatibility chart because
Okay.
there's multiple things you can look at in a relationship. So yeah, it wasn't a compatibility thing. It was a marriage chart thing. So, but it's not that big a deal, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like there could be a lot worse, problems that you might not be able to overcome together. So, well, what did your family think when you told them, or how long was it till you told them, I met this guy at the gas station and I think, he might be
Yeah.
the one.
Well, I mean, we dated 3 years, so we had traveled to visit the family. So they had all met him, and I think they were a little confused that he did astrology for a living because that's kind of a weird career, right? And but then they joked, because I have a master's degree in theater and all this, and so there was some kind of judgment about him, like, well, he's an astrologer, like, what kind of career is that, kind of thing. And but I have two moms because I was adopted by my aunt. But anyway, the one mom that adopted me said to the other mom, well, what'd you expect? She'd marry an attorney? She'd marry an attorney talking about aliens and stuff. Because I mean, I do that publicly. I like get interviewed and I'm on TV and podcasts talking about UFOs and aliens. So, and I'm an actress, I can get away with it.
I was
But
getting ready to say you're in theater, what more do you need to say? Because obviously, people expect that you would be attracted to, something different than the regular 9 to 5 person, I think.
yeah, well, when I had my when I got my theater degree and everything, I wasn't into aliens back then. I That happened to me in the mid 90s after graduate school and after I moved to California from New Orleans. So that was a real shock to my system when all that happened. And I just couldn't ignore it, And I mean, when someone has a paranormal event that's very traumatizing, it doesn't leave you. You can't just walk away from that. You have to go, oh my God, what is going on this planet? And so it kind of, made a huge impression on me. And I started writing for UFO magazine for 5 years. And I traveled the world. I went to Roswell to see the Roswell crash place and everything and go to a conference. And I went to England to see the crop circles. So, Jeff met me when I was into UFOs for like 3 years. That's all. But I was really into it, you know. So, but he liked that because he had seen them too, and he had missing time, and he had all these weird things happen. So he got me. As a matter of fact, right after we started dating, he had a UFO experience. He had gone back to that same beach, and he brought a salmon salad in a Tupperware with him, and he was eating it at the beach. And he called me and told me right after it happened. He said, "Oh my gosh, Camille, you got to hear what just happened to me. I'm sitting here eating a salmon salad out of a Tupperware, and all of a sudden I hear this voice like in my head saying he's primarily a vegetarian and da da da. It was like scanning his body, and he thought, what on earth is happening?" And then he looks out over the ocean, and there was this light, and it just shot off. And he went, "I think I was just scanned by aliens." Totally freaking out. So, we've had some weird experiences between the two of us, but we enjoy it. And, we hang out in that crowd and we go to conferences and stuff. So it's fun.
So, what was your experience that, made you believe or got you on this path of interest of UFOs?
Well, uh, in 1995, right after moving to LA from New Orleans, and I was living with my ex-boyfriend, Eric. We were actors together, and everything was great when we got here. We had agents right away. I had my SAG card. I had my master's degree. I thought everything was going to be great. And we moved into this cool house on a hill in Silver Lake. And one day we were walking the dog in the daytime in the neighborhood, and she started barking at this squirrel that had run up a tree, a palm tree. And there was a whole nest of squirrels at the top. And then our dog was going crazy. And we thought it was so cute. And we looked up at the palm tree, and there was a UFO in the sky above it. And it was very, very high up. It was like a triangle, and it had a shimmer around it. It was kind of hard to make out, actually. But it wasn't a helicopter. It was really high, and it was sitting still. And I had just read a book about UFOs, a Whitley Strieber book back in New Orleans, like a month before this. And we were looking at it, and Eric was like, "You and your UFO books, ooh!" And I said, "Shut up." And then, so we looked at each other, and then we looked back at it, and it was gone. And we were on this hill where we had the whole sky, and it was just gone. It hadn't gone anywhere that we could find. And so I said, "Eric, I think that was a UFO. I am going home. I'm going to report it." And I handed him the leash, I remember. And I ran home, and they had a UFO hotline in the phone book, and I called it. And this guy answered. He said, he was with MUFON. And he said, "Oh, yeah, I want to hear about it." And he said, "Oh, and by the way, we have UFO meetings every month in person with guest speakers if you want to come." And I said, "Oh my goodness, yes. Tell me where." So I started going to the meetings. And meanwhile, in December, that same time period before I started going to the meetings, I had these attacks in the night of sleep paralysis. And I'd had that before, but this time when I had it, it was very weird because I had a voice say my name in my ear, like on the left side, and it sounded like a robot voice or a computer simulated voice. And it scared me because I was in this paralyzed state and I heard the voice, and then I saw an image of a gun flash in front of my face, like a gun pointed at me in my face, but it went away. And I thought while I was in this state, like, what is happening? I mean, I'm seeing things and hearing things. This is so weird. What is going on? And so there were some physical things going on too. And I ended up getting a regression with this famous therapist for regression therapy. And I had this full on memory of being abducted by aliens that night. It was terrifying. I was screaming and chattering my teeth and moaning, and it was horrifying. And it was very medical. They had me on the table and the whole thing, and it was just awful. And so that's how it all began. And then more things were happening. So I don't want to get all into that, but it was a lot. And then I went to different people to make it stop. I had this woman pray over me and it stopped. And then I thought, well, that's good because I don't want that to happen again. And anyway, it's been a long journey and I've been in it a long time now. It's been 30 years I've been into this. So, um, and I'm still into it. But I don't know if they're angelic beings, demonic beings, actual aliens, other dimensional beings, time travelers. I don't know what they are. Um, but it's getting very exciting and a lot's coming out in Congress in congressional hearings with disclosure from military people and such. So it's getting very exciting and I think something's about to be revealed. I hope because I'm really tired of waiting and wondering what the heck this is.
So did Jeff, when you told him like the story you just told us, or others even, you know, how did they react?
He was fine with it. He had his own experiences when he was growing up in Wisconsin. He used to see them coming out of a lake, and he would see them in the late at night. And his parents didn't believe him, and he finally got up, got him, and woke him up and said, do you see what I'm seeing?" And they were like, "Oh my gosh, we believe you." And then another time, he was riding his motorcycle in the woods, and he grew up in Kenosha, but then he also moved up to Eagle River, Wisconsin, which is very close to Canada and very cold and very woodsy. And he was riding his motorcycle at night and he was chased by a ball of light UFO, and he it was like trailing him through the woods and everything, and it made his bike stall, and then it went away, and then he was kind of frightened and he couldn't start his bike, so he slept at the neighbor's house that he knew on this road. And the next morning he got up, his bike started right away. So that was really weird. And then another time he was driving with a friend on a highway going one direction, and they had missing time, and then they were like on the highway going in another direction, and they have no idea how they got on the other side of the highway going the opposite direction. So he's never had hypnosis, but he's had enough run-ins with them that he knows it's real. And then the whole telepathic thing with at the beach, that really freaked him out. And he's seen a lot of UFOs here recently, like in Malibu, riding his motorcycle. So they're around. It's very, there's a lot of sightings here where we live.
Very interesting. So when you become parents, how does that change your relationship?
Well, it gives you a whole other level of uh, responsibility. Obviously, you're like, wow, we've got to like, you know, raise this kid and be responsible about money and, agree on what kind of reality we're going to teach him about in the world. And so there are a lot of things, that um, come up for parents that maybe didn't think about certain things until they arise, like I went through a period um, in 2012-ish, 2013-ish. We were living in Tucson. We left LA and we moved to Tucson for 10 years. And while we were in Tucson, that was the time from when my son was about 3 to 13. And uh, I had this whole born again Christian experience. And I decided to go back to church. And I thought all the alien stuff was demonic. And I just dropped out and I went to church. And it was the Latin Mass, Catholic Church. It was like really intense and conservative and old school, you know? And I got confirmed, but I got confirmed without being fully knowledgeable about all the rules, unfortunately, because I missed one day of confirmation class. But anyway, it's another story. But so we had a marital conflict because he was making a living as an astrologer, and that's not allowed in Catholicism. And I believed in astrology, but I also believed in Catholicism. I was like, what do I do? This is so confusing. And I didn't want to lose my marriage over it. So I just, the church basically told me, you're not in a state of grace. You shouldn't have been confirmed. And so if you can keep going to church and everything, but you can't have communion, you can't go to confession because you are, married to an astrologer, and all this stuff. And so that was the most difficult time in our lives, is when I was going to church all the time and trying to be a good Catholic. And I was still being his secretary and booking clients and, handling everything. It was just, I was living this dual life. And, but he said, this is a phase. You're going to grow out of it. You're just in love with it because it's so beautiful. And I was like, it's true and beautiful. Anyway, so we went through a very challenging phase. I think a lot of people go through is when they're married a long time and their belief systems change about something like that, like religion or something. That can be very challenging, especially if you're raising a kid. So, in that situation, I just agreed to compromise. I took my son to church sometimes, but our son went to dad to ask him questions astrologically about things. So we just raised him with both kind of, and I I'm just not hardcore Catholic. I'm just not a great Catholic, but I'd rather have a happy marriage and just, be in this weird state that I'm in. And I don't think aliens are all demons either anymore. I think there's a lot going on. I think it's very complex. So I just don't worry about that anymore. I do still go to church, but I don't worry about that I'm not being perfect at it, you know?
Right. Well, I do think like as people change, whatever the reason or the issue, um, that is a period of adjustment, and sometimes that's a period where it doesn't work anymore. So I'm really glad that you were able to work together to find a compromise that worked for you both. Willie, what are your thoughts at this point in this story?
Well, that's what I was getting ready to ask her, if she stayed in church or what
Yeah, I
she
stayed, but
decided to do.
they have their rules about like, it's not like going to any church. It's like there are rules and there's like tiers of rules. So, so I can still go. I cannot have communion and I cannot go to confession. But they pray for me and they're like, "We hope you know, your husband converts, or if he dies before you, you can stop doing astrology and helping him with his business and then you can be a good Catholic." All these things. I mean, these are the things that, they want to happen for me to be safe. But I'm just not, I'm just still married, still happily married, and I'm just not that great at my religion. That's how I see it at this point. I just pray to God, please always show me the truth. And that's it. And if I say to God, if you want to break up my marriage, you do it because I don't want to do it, you know? Yeah.
So, what advice would you give to people that meet at the gas station or other random places?
Well, you never know. I mean, I believe that we have guardian angels and God is always helping us find people. And it happens to me all the time. I meet amazing people. So I just say, go with your instincts and see what happens. It could be a very mundane thing that you're doing that could be a magical beginning to something. It doesn't have to be glamorous.
Well, the story is very fascinating and it's lasted how long now?
Yeah, well, we've met in 1998 and it's 2026. So,
That's a really long time. How do you keep things like intentionally? How do you both work towards keeping things new and exciting, but also holding on to the familiar?
well, another thing about our relationship is that we work together. and I do handle the clients and media and booking and things like that. I like all that. I really do. It allows me a lot of freedom too, this working relationship we have, to where I can still act. I can audition, I can have the day off and go do a job, um, because we work on our own time, and we manage things when they get busy. I can travel a lot because I work with him. We have a company together. So it's very nice. So I like being creative with him. And we don't ride motorcycles together much because I have a lot of anxiety about riding motorcycles.
Mm.
I'm kind of a wimp. But we do other things together. We go out to eat, and we do go to some traveling events together. We go to UFO conferences together. And there's a big one we like to go to in California called Contact in the Desert. That's at the end of May, early June. It's really fun. It's 5 days long. So, um, even though he's not into going to church with me, except sometimes like Christmas and Easter, um, we do other things together. We enjoy outdoors. We enjoy our son. Our son still lives at home. So, he's still with us. And he's an actor too and doing multiple different jobs. So we like helping him and supporting him and enjoying being with him.
Yeah, so what part of each of you do you see in your son?
Well, my son is very much like his dad. He's very intuitive, and he is not into school. Like, I was super academic, and I love rules. I have a strong Saturn. Saturn is the planet of rules and law and order, things like that. So I love rules. I went to Catholic school. I was taught by nuns. I was a front row straight A student. I did Irish dancing. I rode horses and rode dressage. So I like things that have a lot of like regimented, you know, formality. I like drum lines. I like, you know, even in art, those are the types of things I like. It's funny. And so they tease me because I am kind of different from them that way. And they are more kinesthetic. They are good with their hands. They like doing mechanical things together. They like working on cars and motorcycles, and they like technology. So they enjoy that together. And my son is hardly like me at all, to be honest. The only thing I joke with that we have in common is that he faints at the sight of blood. Like, he cut himself once when he was a little kid, and we took him to the hospital. And he fainted, and I said, "Oh, now you're like me." So, but other than that, we're really not alike. But I adore him. I adore my son. But yeah, he doesn't have much in common with me at all.
All right. Well, if looking back from the gas station to Paris, your family, all the exploring, um, you know, would you do it all over again and hope it goes exactly as it did?
Well, of course, because you are your journey, and even if there are bad things in it, like alien abduction, um, they're part of your journey. And so I mean, as scary as all that was, it also opened me up to a reality that was fascinating and interesting and has good parts to it as well. And so, um, I mean, I'm really glad I went to England and walked in the crop circles. That was fascinating. It was magical. And I really enjoy, you know, all these people I meet through my husband and all of our clients. And then this lady that I went to Ireland with, she's one of our clients who's become one of my best friends. So it's been wonderful, this journey we've been on together. And there's a lot of overlap, in what he does for a living, being metaphysical and spiritual and all that, and the things that I'm into. So I love it. I think we're very well matched.
Awesome. Well, he must have known it from the charts in the beginning, and they proved to be true for you. All right, Willie, a last question from you, and then I have just a couple of like lightning round little items, and we'll close out.
Okay. If you had to pick a movie to describe your marriage, what would it be?
Oh my gosh, that's so hard. I can't decide. Let me think. I can't think of one. Um, I don't know. I can't really think of a movie. I can just tell you that personality wise, Jeff is kind of like Robert Mitchum, and he looked a little bit like him when he was young. And so, kind of a tough guy, you know, but silent, tough. And I don't know, a movie. Oh gosh. I don't know any movie that's like us at all. Do you?
Um, I mean, I would guess that it would have to be one that, has some paranormal something element to it. So, I don't know, but I think that's a really interesting question.
I know that we both love certain movies. We both love Gone with the Wind and The Sound of Music and The Blues Brothers. I mean, we have favorite movies together, but I don't know of any movies that are like us.
So, what if he had hated Sting? Would that have been
Yeah,
a
what
deal
if?
breaker?
Isn't that weird? Well, I would not know, but it's hard to hate Sting.
Yes.
But I'm glad he likes Sting. Jeff is a Libra and Sting is a Libra. I don't know if that might be it, but um, I think that that was a beautiful part of our first date that he actually went to the store. We rode to the store to Tower Records and we bought a Sting CD and put it in his stereo and listened to it on headphones.
Aw,
That was sweet.
that's very romantic.
Hmm.
So, you know, is it the little things like that that matter?
Yeah, I do. I think they all add up.
All right. Well, this has been very fascinating.
Yes,
Y-
it has.
I am very curious now about, so if anyone's listening out there and they want to know on their first date, are we compatible? Like, does your husband offer those readings for?
Certainly. Yes, he is a professional astrologer and he has a website which is just his name, jeffharmon.com. And I'm CamilleJamesHarmon.com. So it's both easy. It's just our websites.com, our names.com. And you can see more about me on my website. And it's about acting and UFOs. And then you could go to his website and learn all about his readings.
All right. And
Okay.
would you recommend that to people, that are just meeting and wondering, like, because you don't want to like waste
Yeah,
several years of your life only to find out, this is not going to work.
right. Well, I would say you can find readings online probably cheaper than with my husband because he's very top shelf. But if you want a really good reading, yes, you could book a reading with my husband and do a compatibility check. And you would need your birth data. So, not just your birth date, but the city and state you were born and the time of day you were born. And if you have that for both of you, then it would be a very accurate reading. And then he also does things like schedule weddings rather, um, all kinds of stuff like that.
So what do you mean by that?
That's a
Does he
different
perform
thing.
weddings?
When you schedule your wedding and you want it to be on an auspicious date with good astrological aspects happening.
Oh,
Hmm.
So,
okay.
like that you ended up on the same day that you met at a certain time that was your best.
That was just a coincidence. But no, he picked that date using astrology, and then we found out it was the exact same date 3 years later. But
Cool.
see, 2 weeks after we got married, 9/11 happened. So he was like, we need to get married before this period or after, like 6 months from then, like further out. And so little did we know, 9/11 happened 2 weeks later. He said, you see what I was trying to avoid? Oh my goodness. I said, wow, I'm glad we avoided that energy. So yeah, he schedules surgeries for people. He schedules business openings and legal filings and all kinds of things for people. Buying a
That's,
house, listing a house, all kinds of stuff. That's a whole other thing. But he does
well,
a lot.
well, that's all very interesting though.
Hmm.
So, Well, this has been a pleasure to hear your story. It's very unique, and I hope that someone out there listening needs this type of service or encouragement to make a decision so they can have a happy love life going
Well,
forward.
and I actually have a connection to that date that you all got married.
Really?
Yes,
Ah,
Tell
my
me.
maternal grandmother was married on August 22nd,
Oh,
and her birthday's August 23rd.
oh, wow.
Yes.
You know what's weird? Sting and his wife were married on August 21st at the courthouse, and then August 23rd at their house. They reenacted it and did it and had the big, church wedding, and the friends come over for the party. So that was weird.
And it is.
well, all
Yeah.
these dates and
Uh-huh.
wow.
Well, and actually, I have a friend, she's since passed away. Her birthday was August 21st.
Hmm. Well, I just I like all that. I like dates and I mean, the universe really is a combination of math and spirit. It's and astrology, all it is a relationship between things like objects that have influence and are part of this hologram that we live in, this universe of energy. So they're not working with gravity, they're working with a geometric, holographic energy influence on all of us. So it's very fascinating. And we're all connected. We and the planets and the earth and the animals and God, it's all a big creation that's interconnected.
Well, here's to wishing that everyone out there finds their person that they're supposed to be connected with, if they're supposed to be connected. And thank you again for sharing your story,
Yes, thank you
Camille,
so much.
You're
James,
welcome.
Harmon, and thank Jeff as well, for his part in this story.
Well, thank you. It's been a great adventure with Jeff, and he's he's right. I mean, about so many things. Like even when I bought a horse, he said, "You're having a midlife crisis. It's a phase, but go ahead and get the horse." And sure enough, I had the horse a few years. I was like, "Okay, I'm done with this. It's not working out." It's just funny.
Yeah. Well, he seems like he is right quite often from what
Yeah,
you're telling us. So,
yeah.
all right, thank you so
You're
much.
very welcome.
Thank
Okay.
you.